Divine greetings, ones and zeros, zeros and ones, boys and girls that are now men and women, kings and queens, gods and goddesses, spiritual beings of this divine matrix. Welcome to this live episode. My name is Clay, and today I want to share with you my perspective on going into this new moon, into this Cancer new moon. And as I'm going into this Cancer new moon, I'm focusing on sowing the seeds of authenticity. So, greetings, inner standing, overstanding. Greetings, brethren. Good for see the eye here. And as I was saying, today I'm talking about sowing seeds of authenticity going into this new moon in Cancer. So now, for me, today is a third eye day, a third eye sacral day, to be exact. And as I mentioned in previous episodes, whenever there is a new moon and there is a full moon, the day that the new moon lands on or the full moon lands on is heart day. And then we work, or I work the moon day from that point on. So for example, as this is manifestation goes from the crown or from the soul star down into the earth star. So starting from the crown, as the crown is the highest chakra in the body, yesterday was crown chakra, today is third eye chakra, tomorrow is throat chakra, and the next day is heart chakra. That is the new moon day. And then continuing down, it's solar plexus, then the sacral, then the root, and that we usually work. I usually work the 7-day process in the new moon and full moon manifestation and transmutation realm. So today for me is a third eye chakra day, specifically a third eye sacral day, as Sunday is also a sacral day, or we work, and I keep saying we because it's my partner and I, so I'll go between saying we and I. So I work the days of the week, starting from Monday. Monday is the crown root day, or I should start from the crown. Tuesday is the crown day, Wednesday would be third eye day, Thursday would be throat day, Friday would be heart day, Saturday would be solar plexus day, Sunday is sacral, and Monday, which is our Sabbath, is root day. So we rest on root day. So now, going into the what it is that I came here to share with the public, to share with everyone. Greetings, Sean White Whitney in the chat. So I'm talking about sowing seeds in this new moon in Cancer, and particularly Cancer represents the family aspect of things, and the opposing, or the opposing side of Cancer is Capricorn, and Capricorn represents the individual and striving in life, or striving in society, in civilization as an individual. So I'm going to be going back and forth in these two themes, particularly in the theme or in the house of Cancer, where I'm seeing a lot of changes for myself. Change number one, or if I should numeralize it, is the recognizing that authenticity is something that is kept in integrity. Because authenticity, as I understood before, I thought that authenticity meant, and you know what, let me take the time out to take a breath. And if you want, I'm going to take another breath, and if you choose to, you can take this breath with me. I'm going to inhale in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Inhale. Hold it for 4. And out. All the way out. And out. And I did that to reset my frequency. Sometimes when I get excited or when I go online, I get excited, I tend to lose focus on my spirit, lose focus on doing my soul work. So my primary purpose being here on earth is to do my soul work. My primary purpose having this live is to do my soul work. So what I am saying is that in cleaning my soul every month, cleaning my soul requires me going in the new moon phase and in the full moon phase. And we're in the new moon phase, so this is referred to as the manifestations phase. As in the manifestations phase, it is the sowing seed phase. And in the full moon phase, it is the transmutations phase. This is the expansion phase, or you could say the explosion phase, where the seed actually explodes into the outer sphere from the new moon phase, where the seed cracks and explodes internally in the inner sphere. So this year I'm focusing on sowing the seeds of authenticity. And let me see, where should I go first? I had said firstly to talk about inauthenticity in the world and inauthenticity growing up. So as I was growing up, for those who know this channel, I grew up with a narcissistic, covert narcissist mother, and I wasn't aware of this covert narcissist mother until I was 38 years, well actually 2 years after. So until I was 40 years old, I wasn't aware that my mother was a covert narcissist. As I became aware that I was a covert narcissist when I was 38 years old. At 38 years old, I was hit with schizophrenia. I had a mental break and I was diagnosed with schizophrenia. As I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, I saw that I was being, all these 38 years, I was being a covert narcissist. And it wasn't until 2 years later where I accepted that my mother was also a covert narcissist. And to give a little bit of a background, I did not grow up with my father. My father left the home when I was 4 years old. And I was brought up, I was raised primarily by my mother. Until 4 years old, until I met my father again, until, or when I went to live with him when I was 19 years old, almost 20 years old. So in any case, I'm talking about the inauthenticity. So everything that I grew up to be until 38 years old, I reflected on that as if that was authenticity. I thought that being a covert narcissist was the way to be a person. I did not know that I was using the fear energy versus using the love energy, because when you use the fear energy, that is what you use to protect you. So your ego is the one who does, and it does based on the instruction of the intuition. And I said it does based on the instruction of the intuition, and what I should say is that it has the option of doing based on the intuition, because the intuition can say that you do not like your mother, and the intuition tells you you do not like your mother, you as the ego have the option to say I do like my mother. Now if you say that you do like your mother and you actually do not like your mother, you're protecting something. That's one way of putting it. You're protecting something, or the way I see fit to put it is that you're deceiving yourself so as to protect yourself. So you deceive yourself and tell yourself you do not like your mother, or you like your mother based on the truth that you do not like your mother, but now you're pimping your intuition. So now, here is the inauthentic portion. Here comes the inauthentic portion, because now you've just proved your inauthenticity. And greetings in the chat. I'm welcoming well-to-do comments and well-to-do questions based on spirituality, or if you have any questions based on what you've known about my life, or just in general what's happening in life and such and so forth. Well-to-do questions, good-hearted questions. So to continue, the inauthenticity that I was showing there is that the intuition told me that I don't like my mother, and it told me that I don't like my mother for a reason. However, I did not like that, because that did not that hurt, and I wanted to avoid that hurt. So in avoiding the hurt, I told my intuition that no, we like our mother, right? In doing so, I deceived myself, and therein would present a moment of authenticity. And until I correct that authenticity, it's going to be there as a structure from that point on to be built onto. So here is another aspect that I am seeing. The moment that you lie to yourself, if you do not correct that lie, you're going to be lying to yourself for quite some time. You're going to be lying to yourself for quite some time until you correct that lie. So how schizophrenia happened with me is that I lied to myself from the moment I was within the womb, or the most vivid remembrance I have is of me being a 1-year-old and witnessing an argument between my mother and my father. And in witnessing that argument between my mother and my father, I chose to be protected by my mother, and in so doing, I chose to pick up her covert narcissistic ways, because my father, though he is unhealed also, he's not a covert narcissist. If anything, he's more of an overt narcissist, whereas she's a covert narcissist. So needless to say, she ran the household from that standpoint, from behind the scenes, so to speak. So at a very young age, at 1 year old, I saw them having a fight, and I remember choosing to be on her team. And as I chose to be on her team, it means that from 1 year old, I chose to be a covert narcissist. And as I chose to be a covert narcissist, I ventured all my life in being that covert narcissist. Excuse me a moment, I have mosquitoes here, and I lit something and I thought it would keep them away, but apparently it's not doing such a good job, because one got through. So in any case, that inauthenticity, I built upon that inauthenticity until I was 38 years old, where I had a mental break. In having that mental break, it revealed to me through humility. I had to humble myself to recognize who I have been all this time. Now, in being that which I had been all this time, I realized that that had not worked. Now, I felt a moment of disrespect in my healing, though, and that's where I want to go. In my healing with my partner, and I had a moment of jealousy because I started to notice it's in the healing process. It's as if I became a child again. At 38 years old, it was difficult to walk, it was difficult to talk, it was difficult to express myself because I had a mental break. And though I had a body that was fully aware of how it is to walk and how to talk, I was not, how do I say? I was broken. My mental frame of mind was broken. And as my mental frame of mind was broken, it relayed in my body, and I felt as if I was a broken person. No. Feeling that you're broken doesn't mean you're broken. And I understood that. I'm describing to you my broken state, how I felt. And I had to learn to put away that feeling of brokenness. And in that moment of brokenness, one of the things that came through is the innocence of being a being on this earth. So I had the innocence of a child. In having the innocence of a child, that innocence made me susceptible to certain energies. I felt a feeling coming to me from my partner's authenticity. Rastafari, bless up. Coming from my partner's authenticity. As I felt this feeling coming from my partner's authenticity, I had the option to choose to be authentic or not to be authentic. And testimony to my previous years, my previous 38 years, I chose to be inauthentic. And therefore, I started to build a house on sand again. This time, it was even more devious. It was even more catastrophic. That building of that house was more catastrophic, was even more shaky, because now it was clear that my mental status had been broken. And as having my mental status being broken, now I didn't even have a strong ego to build on. The ego was very broken. So in having that broken ego, I chose to give into jealousy. As I gave into jealousy, I started building a house of inauthenticity based on jealousy. Now, based on that jealousy, I allowed myself to house inauthentic vibrations. In housing those inauthentic vibrations, another way of saying it is I housed lies, and those lies turned into illusions and delusions. Illusions and delusions to the degree where I had memory, symptom, should I say symptom? Blessing. Yes, a blessing. I'm going to say blessing. A blessing of having the schizophrenic break is that I remembered my past lives. I remembered my 6 previous past lives. And in that past life, I had relationships. And I remembered that relationship was a demonic relationship. It was an egoic relationship. It's the type of relationship that in my Capricorn status, I was very successful. Now, it is not to judge myself. At the time, I didn't know that it was not to judge myself. And I did judge myself. And in judging myself, I brought through that memory, those memories, those egoic memories of being the man, so to speak. Because in my past lives, all my past lives, I was a man. And I had the recollection of being a successful man. So when I saw my partner being jealous, correction. When I saw my partner was doing what she was doing, and in her authenticity, I became jealous. And in my jealousy, I remembered that I did not need to be, how do you say it? I did not need to be authentic. Or a better way of putting it is that the authenticity that I was witnessing in my partner, I chose to see it as inauthenticity. And I chose to see the inauthenticity that I had lived all my previous lives as authenticity. And I protected myself with that inauthenticity. Now, I'm at the stage now where I see that those past lives were lived egoically, and as a result, were lived in not authenticity. So here is my problem. This is now my problem where, or was my problem. It wasn't until later on that I found out what it is that I was doing, though it was difficult to put it away. So now I find out that what I thought was authenticity was inauthenticity, and what I thought was inauthenticity was authenticity. So now I brought the memory of my past life inauthenticity into this reality as a fantasy to base my reality on, and furthermore to base it on the lies of that which it existed. So I trust that what I am saying is not too complicated. Nonetheless, I ask that you bear with me, and if anything, ask questions to clarify what it is that I'm saying. This helps me to solidify or to flow in my mental mind without being egoic. So to continue, the memory of the past life that I had is so disturbing that I wanted to hide it. So I kept it internally as a fantasy. And in doing so, I brought forth, in so doing, I brought forth a connection with the true life. Okay, in so doing, I brought forth a portal. And in bringing forth that portal, I had that. Give me a moment. Let me breathe. I'm having a bit of a dispute or a quarrel within my soul, whether or not I am to uncover this information publicly or not. Okay, so in opening the portal of bringing my past life forth, I also made the connection of that person who I had the past life connection with in real life. So here it is. I have the inauthentic memory of my 6 past lives, along with the connection of the person, of this woman, here in this life. And as I have both connections, they're both held in inauthenticity. Because in holding the past life as true, as more than a memory, that in itself is already inauthentic. And to now hold that as the basis of which to establish the relationship with this true life person is inauthentic. Now, in essence, what I'm talking about is a fantasy, because I took something ideal and made it real. I took something ideal and made it real. So now it became a fantasy. So I had a fantasy with this, about this person. I never contacted, or I never revealed the truth of my thoughts to this other person in real life. I've never done that, fortunately for me. I was warned by a spiritual person to not do that, because that would open even more portals, and I would be rendering fantasies into reality that would be difficult to de-render. In any case, or as I continue, I'm seeing that I then built a house, you could say. This is how I describe it. I built a house of inauthenticity. And from that moment on, whenever I do something that is inauthentic, I would hide it in this house. In hiding it in this house, it would be kept away from memory. These things that I'm describing are subconscious works. If you ask me in the conscious realm, or when I was asked in the conscious world what is happening, I would have no idea of it. These are all subconscious, for the most part, not all. For the most part, they are subconscious happenings. And what I started doing, I started with this fantasy, cheating, in essence, cheating on my current partner, cheating on her energetically. I would be cheating because I would be putting energy into a place where that energy cannot be received, or she has no idea about me putting the energy there. Being that I am a spiritual person, and I understood coming out of my psychosis, out of the schizophrenic break, that I'm a spiritual person having a human experience, I learned how it is that life works, for the most part, egoically. As I was healing both, and that's a oxymoron. I can't say I was healing both egoically and non-egoically. I was healing at the same time I was healing. I was becoming more egoic, because the ego was getting stronger and stronger. If you remember, I was saying the ego was weakened, and as the ego was weakened, I needed to strengthen the ego. However, as I started strengthening the ego, the wound I picked up a wound of jealousy of authenticity. And as I picked up that wound of jealousy of authenticity, I kept that wound instead of healing that wound. So I would heal all the other aspects of the mind, but I would keep that wound of inauthenticity, the jealousy of inauthenticity. And I would hide things in that wound. Now, that is a lot to say about that. Now, I'm talking about that specifically this new moon, because there's two aspects related to that. There's the aspect of the crown chakra. And as I talk about the crown chakra, I'm talking about the attachments that I had made to this person. And when I say the person, I meant the person that I allowed to come through the portal, to the fantasy, and to that person being represented in real life here on earth currently. So I had made attachments to that person, and I am severing those attachments. In severing those attachments, I'm seeing that I am healing my ego. Now, the ego comes in two forms, because of my 18-year-old and my current self. The 18-year-old is the most broken in my sense. Because my father left when I was 4 years old. I have a wound of a 4-year-old. I have a wound of the heart. And then I've since healed that wound and continue to keep it healed. However, the 18-year-old is the most wounded aspect of me. And as the 18-year-old is the most wounded aspect of me, that 18-year-old is holding on to the wound, holding on to the trauma, holding on to it being demonic. It wants to continue to be egoic. It wants to continue to hide all its misappropriations inside the house of jealousy and inauthenticity. And I've since done a lot of spiritual work, a lot of soul work in showing my 18-year-old self that that is not the way to go about living life. So now, as I am showing my 18-year-old these things, it is seeing the light of day. It is seeing the truth. And I'm getting better and better at accepting what it is that I have done, accepting my inauthenticity. And in accepting my inauthenticity, I'm seeing what inauthenticity is and therefore able to be authentic. The other aspect is the whole self. One of the questions I keep asking myself, or I kept asking myself, is how is it that the 18-year-old self has such a strong hold on me? And it's a very simple thing. You are going to act, I am going to act, people are going to act out of their wounds. When you're acting out of your wounds, the ego is telling you that it gave its power away. As it gave its power away, it also gave the memory of the power away. And it is only through humility that you can, how would I say? It's only through humility that you really gain access. Through humility, you gain access to your true self, to your divine ego. And your divine ego shows you what it is that you've done. So I'm seeing these two aspects. Me being subconsciously, right? Me being subconsciously the ego and the divine ego. Me being in reality, in this form that you're witnessing, that you're looking at. I am the older self. I'm the more mature human. I'm the mature adult. And within me, there's the 18-year-old. And the 18-year-old has so much power because I gave that 18-year-old so much power from being wounded. Now I'm taking back that power. So earlier on, you saw me hesitate because I, for one, will not open certain portals. In speaking about these things, certain portals will become open. And I will not open those portals. So I have to be careful and choose my words properly. Because if I open those portals, then I have to deal with those demons. And I've seen the wickedness that comes with certain demons of inauthenticity, and I do not wish and I will not open those portals. So here it is, I am talking about the sowing seeds of authenticity. So now I'm trusting my spirit completely. I'm trusting my spirit of my 18-year-old. I'm trusting the spirit that governs the 18-year-old. I'm not trusting the spirit of the 18-year-old because the 18-year-old is not healed. I have one spirit, and that spirit governs all spirit within my being. And that is the benevolent spirit. So to go to a story, that happened to me recently. Recently, I saw. Give me a moment. Let me breathe again. Let me breathe and bring myself to myself. Let me bring the spirit to the soul and to the body. So, the moment of authenticity. The moment of authenticity that came to me was the moment of authenticity that came to me was seeing that my third eye was suffering from illusions. I have the tendency to see things in black and white. It's either you're bad or you're good. It's either you're a demon or you're an angel. And I'm seeing where not everything is held in the same light. And today I witnessed that and I clarified that for myself. Where my partner did something and it was, as we would say, a little egoic. And as it was a little egoic, I know it was egoic. And my partner knows it's egoic. However, I wanted to chastise her for it being completely egoic. I wanted to say she was a demon, she's a devil for doing what she was doing. And I caught myself. In catching myself, I said, okay, let me understand what it is that is happening, because I see where I want to take what you have done and put it into the house of jealousy and inauthenticity that I have built. And once it goes into that house, there's a whole slew of things that it does. It makes me lose my memory. It makes me, most importantly, lose my memory, and gives power to the possibility of projecting that power onto my partner and onto our household. That is the family aspect, right? So I asked her to allow me to ask her some questions so that I can have an understanding. And ultimately, what it came to be was that us humans, I was not able to consciously process that there are different levels of egoic behavior, essentially different levels of being demonic, and we all practice being a little egoic or a little demonic. Some of us are more demonic than others, some of us are more egoic than others. And though I've used these terminologies in life before many times, I simply could not process it cognitively until today, where I saw that a person is allowed to be a little egoic. A person can be a little demonic, and you not judge that person into being entirely demonic, right? You not judge that person into being entirely demonic, because when you do that, what you're doing is you're judging that person, because you yourself have the tendency to be a little egoic or a little demonic or egoic, right? So when you do that, you judge that person, and it is not for you to judge that person, because now when you judge that person, you're harboring in your house of inauthenticity, the power to then spew your inauthenticity in an authentic way in your mind, because you're going to think that you're authentic when you're doing it, because you've judged this person, you've prejudged this person already. So now you're going to accuse that person of things that that person did not do. And even if that person did do it, the energy that you're going to put on that person is an egoic energy. And you're going to lose your mind. You're going to lose the record of you doing so, because you've chosen to be egoic from the precursor of the whole event. And that is the biggest lesson that I am learning, that I learned yesterday, coming into today, of the crown chakra, into the third eye chakra. Again, the process is seeing someone do something egoic. As the person does the thing egoic, it is not what Google terms it as is everyday sadism. It is not a terrible thing. It is an egoic thing. However, it's not demonic, or correction, it's not excessively demonic. And you see the person do that thing, and when you see the person do that thing, you in yourself judge the person. When you judge the person, you take the power of that judgment, because you're supposed to allow the whole process. You take the power of that judgment and you put it in your house of inauthenticity. As you put it in your house of inauthenticity, you're going to spew back that judgment onto that person or other people, thinking that everything is okay. Because now you're being a narcissist, because you do not understand the empathic pathways that exist, that there is grace. And even though you see someone operating egoically, there is grace in the whole process that allows for that. And it is not for you to then become inauthentic and mimic that which the person is doing, because now you're operating outside of grace, because you're consciously mimicking and doing the thing that you know is wrong, in a disgraceful way. I trust that that is clear. And if it is not clear, again, as I said, ask questions, make comments. There was one other thing that I wanted to talk about, and it is to, in this new moon in Cancer, ask my guides to keep sending me positive affirmations of experiences, and keep sending me the opportunity to see myself for who I am. It is for me to continuously be humbled and sit in humility. All throughout this live, there has been at least one person here, and I am very thankful for that, because that gives me the impetus to keep going. Though I would continue if no one was here, it is helpful to see that at least one person is here, even if that one person is registered as an AI, which I don't think it is, but if it is, then I'm prepared for that also. Because I do think that these processes that I'm describing is important processes for humankind, for mankind. We have the ego. The ego is how we do things. You can do things egoically or intuitively. When I'm talking here, I do my absolute best to remain intuitive. I do my absolute best to not be egoic. And even as I'm doing that, I get mind attacks. I get mind attacks from the overt world that says that hey, the numbers aren't matching up. And then I get mind attack from the subvert world, the subconscious world that says that I feel. Fortunately for me, my guides are here, and as my guides are here, they give me the opportunity through speaking to me directly and ensuring that they're holding my head high, and ensuring that there is a crown on my head, ensuring that my third eye is working, ensuring that my throat is operating properly, my heart is clear of grief, my solar plexus is very much in the divine will, my sacral is experiencing pleasure, my root is experiencing love, and in the earth I am fully aware that I am protected, I am guided, I am abundant, and in my soul star there is the divine will. So that is me expressing my gratitude to the being that is here. There was one thing, give me a moment. There was one other thing. It wasn't GK, it was and there's a bird singing, and with that singing, that is my confirmation to speak through the heart. And as I speak through the heart, I am inclined to invite everyone who comes across this message to speak from the heart. And the way to speak from the heart is to study the heart. And the way that I've found to study the heart is through having moon practices. You have your new moon and you have your full moon, and these are moments of high tides and higher tides. The new moon is high etheric tide, the full moon is high physical tides. And with these tides, you can access your soul's divinity. In accessing your soul's divinity, you get to pursue your true soul's delight. And in pursuing your true soul's delight, you have the experience of a lifetime. Without going through the heart, the experience that you're having is not the experience of a lifetime. It is an experience of a lesser time. The experience of fullness can only be had through the heart. And I encourage everyone to use the new moon, use the full moon to humble yourself to the feelings, to the nature of nurturing yourself. And as you humble yourself to the feelings of nature and nurturing yourself, you will be assured in your life's journey. And that is where I'm going to close this portal for this moment. And it is my intention to keep doing these videos in this new moon season. As I say, Ashe and Amen.